Solomon, and a lot of these stories get attributed to him. He's renowned for being very, very wise. You know, even wiser than your parents. That's how wise they are, he is. Maybe not wiser than your parents, but wise. And he realized that he couldn't really be happy, because when he was happy, he knew it was going to end. And he thought, oh, well, I can't really fully enjoy the happy because I know it's going to end. And he said, and the trouble is when I'm sad, I think that's never going to end, because I just think I'm so sad that I can't imagine being happy again. So I need a gift. I need a gift that tells me how to deal with those situations. And so he talks to all his advisors, who are very, very smart people, and none of them really know an answer. He said, well, go out in the land and find me something that will help me deal, to remind me that when I'm happy, I should stay happy, and when I'm sad, it will end. So they go over, and for 6 months they look all over the land, trying to find this thing to help the king, but no one's found anything. Can you think of anything that would do that? No, I can't either. So it should make for an interesting end to the story. So, but this young person wasn't willing to give up. He kept looking and looking and looking, and it was the last night before his meeting with the king, and he goes into this really poor neighborhood, and he finds this shop that sells all these trinkets and things. They don't look like they've got a lot of value. And he talks to the person there, and it's a kind of wise old woman there, and they ask, do you have anything that could help someone deal with when sadness, they're going to get through it, or when there's happiness, they should enjoy it because it's going to end? And he said, oh yes, I've got it, this ring. So he looked at the ring and says, well, that doesn't look like you do it. Well, I need to write something on it. Oh. So the old woman goes away and she engraves the ring in the inside of the ring and then gives it to the young person. The young person looks at it like, that would do it. So he runs back to the king's house, and the next morning the king says, so is anyone that can deal with the problem? And they said, yes, this ring. And the king said, this ring? Looks at it, and he reads the inscription inside, and it says, this too shall pass. And he goes, so when something's happy, it will end, so I may as well enjoy it as much as I can. And when I'm really sad or having something hard that I'm going through, I need to remind myself that that will end too. So thank you so much for listening. It's nice to see you all. I hope you have a great summer. And it's time for your religious education class now. We will sing you out. Okay.
Hi. My name is Lee Rossi. I'm, in addition to being a member of this congregation, I am a recovering codependent. You should also know that I'm a baby boomer. I mean, I'm sure you can tell that I've been around for a very long time. I turned 18 in 1974. 64, oh my God, my arithmetic is going. In 1964, and most of my young adulthood was spent wondering whether or not I was going to go to Vietnam and get killed. But let's leave that aside for the time being. As I said, I am a recovering codependent. And once upon a time, I attended meetings of the adult children of alcoholics. Before that, I was a so-called gifted child in a family of alcoholics, my job being to take care of the emotional needs of my parents. My father's need for recognition and validation, my mother's need for emotional intimacy and support. Seen in that light, my whole life has been a long struggle for healing and renewal. Interestingly enough, my religious tradition, not to mention American culture in general, insisted that the proper response to suffering was continued suffering. If my parents were constantly fighting and causing me emotional turmoil, I was supposed to accept their turmoil and not add mine to theirs. It would not have been okay for me to say, "Hey, Mom, hey, Dad, why are you guys fighting?" It really freaks me out. My job was to go to school and get good grades, and also to stay out of their way and not interfere with or add to the complicated discord of their lives. My mother always said, children should be seen and not heard. And I always did my best to follow her directive. The fact was that I loved my parents, even with all their flaws, and my parents loved me, I suppose, but only as long as I didn't add to their troubles. Of course, I never really tested their love, never did anything that might cause them trouble or embarrassment. I was a model child. I'm sorry, modesty was not one of the things I learned. I was a model child. I got the best grades in my class. I was always respectful to the nuns and priests. I never fought, almost never, with other kids, not even when I was picked on. I never took anything that didn't belong to me. I ate whatever my mother fixed for dinner, even disgusting stuff like liver and onions. As you might imagine, this belief system and set of habits did not prepare me for any kind of adult life except one of self-abnegation and misery. And I was miserable, unhappy in my first marriage, unhappy in my jobs. My first attempt at renewal was therapy. Later, I tried 12-step groups. And eventually, I tried writing, which has been my practice for nearly 40 years. In the meantime, I tried meditation, the high church kind, Zen meditation, and then I tried a California New Age cult. All of that helped, but I was nearly 50 before I made a real breakthrough. The last 25 years have been the happiest period of my life. I love my wife. I love my children. I love the people in this religious community. Except for Donald Trump and Ron DeSantis, there aren't many people I don't love. But mostly I love my life, a state of mind and being that I couldn't imagine when I was young, and as James Joyce once put it, priest-ridden. Even for someone like me, even with all kinds of advantages, achieving escape velocity from the small planet where one is born and acculturated is the hardest thing you can do. But if, like me, you're committed to a better life and a world filled with love, a diverse, democratic, creative world, it's the only way to go. What it took was effort, long-term effort, struggle, desire for change, and the help of many, many people who already knew something about love. So if you're on that kind of journey, keep going. It may seem like it's taking forever, but in fact, every day you're getting closer and closer to your heart's desire.
When I think about things like this week's presidential debate, the terrible wars in our world, climate change, and many other difficult topics near and far, I, like many of us here, find it difficult to live with hope and optimism. In the last year, I've chosen to attempt to focus on love. I can find love in almost any person, place, or situation if I look for it. My personal hashtag is Joy Seeker. The bad news in our world can make it hard to live with that mantra. I feel really vulnerable sharing this with you, but I have not listened to or watched any substantial news for over a year. I wonder what you think of me for not being informed. I also judge myself, thinking I should keep up with the news. Does it make me less educated, a less interesting person? Do I lose my UU membership card? What I really ask myself is, does it mean that I don't care about the world? One of the things that's arisen over and over in my spiritual explorations is that I choose love, focusing on the good in people, all that surrounds us, and in everything that happens. Perhaps God is simply the energy that flows through each of us and all that exists. For me, that energy can be called love. Boy, this can be challenging when looking at the realities of our world. Just look at one of our current presidential candidates, someone I have no respect for, but my spiritual practices call me to love. What? Love him? Yes, love. Love for the little boy that he once was. Love, perhaps, for the frightened man he may be inside. Who knows what his internal demons are? This is very challenging for me, especially because his leadership makes me afraid. Afraid of what happens if he gets elected. And I'm not suggesting that I have to accept or like him. That is different to me than love. But I make a choice, and it's a hard choice, to respect the inherent dignity and worth of every person. I've been listening to Wayne Dyer's audiobook, Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life. Each chapter is a verse of the Tao Te Ching, which is the foundational text of Taoism. The spiritual text was written as a poem and has been translated and interpreted by many over the years. The Tao Te Ching discusses the nature of Tao, objectivity and balance, non-action, and harmonious living. In Wayne Dyer's book, after sharing a translation of a verse, there is an essay about how the verse might apply to modern life. This week I've been listening to verses 30 to 34, and one of his suggestions is that we not give our attention to anything that has violence or force, war, murder, presidential debates, whether it be on the news, a movie we are watching, or a novel we are reading. Along with the essay, Wayne Dyer usually has a relevant quote from another spiritual teacher. One of the quotes was from this poem by St. Thomas Aquinas. How is it that they live for eons in such harmony, the billions of stars, when most men can barely go a minute without declaring war in their mind against someone they know? There are wars where there are no marches with a flag, though that does not keep the casualties from mounting. Our hearts irrigate the earth. We are fields before each other. How can we live in harmony? First, we need to know we are all madly in love with the same God. What would happen if we chose love and compassion for all instead of war? The kind of war that I can have an impact on living here in Redwood City and San Mateo County, even though I am afraid, is to choose love and not force. That is my way of choosing humanity, nature, the planet, all the billions of stars in the universe.
This theme for this month is renewal. As we head into the summer, I think renewal is a good topic. We have a little bit more space in our life, hopefully. There's a change of rhythm that goes on. And maybe we can find space to renew ourselves as individuals, renew our community, and renew ourselves religiously. Renew ourselves through our relationships, perhaps repairing a relationship that's tenuous, or perhaps even broken. Perhaps renew ourselves through rest. Take some space Tracey was saying to me before the service that she's putting on her schedule a day of doing nothing. Why just a day? And perhaps we renew ourselves through change. Sometimes a change gets forced upon us, and that forces us to renew ourselves. As far as community, how do we renew a community? I'll talk more about that later. But what about renewing our connection to our faith, to our tradition, to UUFRC, to the divine of our understanding? Now, renewing is the purpose of religious community. We are the nurturers of souls, both our individual souls and our collective soul as a community. But when we talk about renewal, it's not really going back to where we were. Renewal is about ending up in a different place with new energy, with new rejuvenated, with a new perspective in the world. It's built on the past, but we renew to create something different, to move ourselves into a different place, a different worldview, a different perspective. I know as an individual, and I suspect many of you feel the same way, I need to review and renew my capacity for healing, for strength, and as Tracey and Lee both talked about, renewing my capacity for love. I know my capacity has been reduced through the events of the years, the war in Ukraine, the devastation in Gaza, the situation in Sudan, the division in our own country. I need to renew my capacity for love, and through that capacity for love, I need to renew my capacity to be part of the healing of our country, of our world, and of my own soul. And one perspective I know that I can renew is through connecting with joy. Joy, what brings you joy? For me, cooking, and especially eating. Renew myself through connecting with hope. And this may sound paradoxical, but sometimes I renew my hope by reading about history. Because history was so bad compared to where we are now that we're actually in a better place, even though that could be hard to acknowledge. I mean, you read how things were in the past, how they were for women, how they were, this is Pride Month, how they were for the LGBTQ community, how they were for people of colour, how they were for the poor. While all those are still problems, I think the degree of those problems is less than it was in the past, and that's what gives me hope. That is what bends the arc of the moral arc of the universe towards justice. It's bent, but we need to bend it. I think another important renewal for me is appreciation for the gift that life is. The good people around me, like this community, the good people in my family. Natalie, my partner, was talking the other day about saying that we have such good families, and I know that's not true of everyone. I heard Lee struggle in his reflection with his parents. But find those good people in your life and connect with them. Let them know how much they mean to you. As we talked about at last week's service, and we'll talk about later, appreciating who we are, what we do, what we bring, can be renewing. And I also get renewed through growth. I know most of you get tired of me talking about spiritual growth, but I'm not going to stop. Because that was what renewed. Growth renews me. That's what renewal is. We start in a place, we don't go back there. We get re-energized, rejuvenated, re-inspired to take ourselves to a different place. And I know it's hard. I look at my father. My father worked hard all his life. He started working when he was 14. He had to retire through ill health at 57. But he never really accepted retirement. I think he dealt with undiagnosed depression. And he had a lot of health struggles, to the extent that every time I went back to Scotland to see them and I left, I would look at him at the airport and think, this may be the last time I see you. And that continued for 20 years. But every time, because of his health, I was always concerned about that. So we hugged. I told him I loved him. He looked at me uncomfortably because he was a West of Scotland working class man. Me too. And I poked fun out, and one time I said, so you love yourself too? But he never really accepted the changes, his new identity as an individual. He could not renew his identity beyond his job. He could not renew his relationship with his body because of his health struggles. And I wonder how much better his life might have been if he could have done that. The Presbyterian minister and religious thinker Frederick Buechner says, the place God calls you to is a place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. The place God calls you is a place where your deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. Think about, where is that? What brings you renewed, rejuvenated joy? And where are the needs of the world? Be it in your family, be it in your neighborhood, be it in this community, be it in the wider community. Where does your joy, your gladness, and where does the deep needs of the world meet? That is where the divine is, that's where the God is, that's where the sacred is. That is how we can reconnect, renew our faith. And I do get renewed through joy, through music, through food, through art, through dance, through friends. When we've art here, we've got art with these beautiful table, this pulpit. Never forget the beauty and art that is around us, because that can bring joy, that can bring beauty, that can bring renewal to us. And when we connect with our joy, I believe that can increase our capacity for love, which can increase my capacity to bring healing into the world. I also have a spiritual practice of seeking out and sharing stories of hope, uplift, and progress. I mentioned history earlier. Now, I don't think I'm at as much risk as Tracey of you losing her UU membership, but I don't wake up and listen to the news. I wake up to find something inspirational, something joyful, something uplifting, a story of hope. I meditate for 17 minutes every morning. I then find a story of hope, of optimism, of renewal. I do get to the news later, Tracey, so. But you need to prepare ourselves. We need to connect with those sources of joy and hope and optimism and inspiration in our world, because it's hard. The world, it's hard out there for too many people, including people in this room. And it was interesting in preparing for this week. You know, I get a lot of books out the library, and I finally got a notice from the library saying, renewal limit reached. Renewal limit reached. I didn't know that could happen. It can. So that's only for the library books. But do you have a renewal limit? Have you reached it? I don't think we have. I think human beings have an infinite capacity for renewal, if it's the right renewal. Brian Andreas, a poet and writer, says, anyone can slay a dragon, but try waking up every morning loving the world all over again. That's what takes a real hero. Anyone can slay a dragon, but try waking up every morning and loving the world all over again. That's what takes a real hero. Now I want to acknowledge the real heroes in this room. And it's all of you. Now, for some of you weren't at the service last week. You missed out. It's the best service ever. And next week's going to be even better because I'm not here. But what we did this ritual where I asked people to bring forward their gifts. And we had plants. We had 4 plants down there, and we had 4 packets of seeds, and we had lots of soil. And people put soil. If they brought time, if they didn't feel they bring a lot of time to the congregation, they would add soil into the time, and we planted thyme seeds. For people who have done a lot of work in the past, and maybe not so much now, we put soil in the rosemary bowl. Rosemary is a sign, a herb of remembrance. And for people like Lee who are humble, we put people who felt they brought wisdom, they put in the bowl with sage. And the final one was those who bring a contrarian point of view or a spicy point of view, put soil in the mustard seeds bowl. But you also brought forward your notes with gifts in there. Now, Natalie, my partner, I took those plants home with me. The only plant that's growing so far is the mustard seeds. I lie not. It's true. And Natalie was intrigued to point that out to me. But I'd like to invite Tracey up now, because we're going to read what you've read as the gifts. And the idea of when you hear these things, whether it's yours or not, I really believe that one of the aspects that renews us is being appreciated by those. That is the power of renewal when we are appreciated. So we're going to ping pong back and forth and read all of these. And let's think of the appreciation you have for the people that bring this, and also appreciation for the gifts you bring.
I bring a passion for connecting youth, families, and individuals cross-generationally, and a friendly, welcoming excitement for new connections.
Rosemary, love, appreciation, and hope for the growth of our spiritual community.
Music, singing in choir, leading Action Sundays in dance and song, motivating, get out the vote, working with kids.
A life of singing and playing professionally in retirement now. I can use these skills more if appropriate, and used to being out in front of people.
Music, I play 10 instruments.
Music again, singing, more services in the future, much services in the past.
I get things done.
I'm an expert mountaineer, backpacker, and kayaker. I offer adventure and renewal in nature.
Serenity, peace of mind, equality.
Give honest feedback, hopefully in a diplomatic way.
Creating and offering transformational, magical, and awe-inspiring sacred spaces, places, and experiences to co-create deep community, service to all, life, and to rebuild, renew, and restore democracy.
Presence.
Time to make coffee.
I deeply appreciate that. I bring my various handyman skills.
Coordinating art activities for communal display, willingness to volunteer when needed.
Joy, caring, service.
Time helping with service days and other events.
Listening presence.
Time on committees building community.
Wisdom, strategic planning and analysis, facilitation, inspirational speaking, and storytelling. Woo.
Sage, wisdom of age and experience.
Leadership, showing up, support to others by listening and bringing, and sustenance.
Time on social action committee, encouragement of people to make their voices heard.
Open mind filled with curiosity and creativity, warm heart fueled by kindness, empathy, and zest for the good life. Courage to fail, courage to succeed, excited to change the world and myself.
Money for the needs of the community, listening, compassion, desire to grow spiritually, visitations to members who can no longer attend.
Wisdom, experience, and welcoming nature and personality.
Music, different worldview.
Service in many ways, garden, mocha, pastoral care, committee, zine.
I am a C group leader.
Practical common sense, try to help get things done.
Connection, joy, happiness, my voice in song.
A positive spirit of welcome to all and a deep knowledge of the community and love for the natural environment.
Willingness to speak up about sensitive topics, sometimes in an attempt to hold us accountable to ourselves.
Time to love, time to share, time to change.
Leadership and knowledge of the collaborative, creative problem-solving process that resulted in a new vision of how to be in community and Action Sundays.
Creativity and work.
One person is a little of all four.
Encouraging, practical, and focus to ensure we get to actions and results.
Ability to help support people, the garden, staff, and the community in very small ways over the years.
Connection.
Artistic talent.
Time. Public speaking.
I reach out to new people and those who may feel isolated or different.
Thank you to all the gifts you bring. And those unspoken. I'd like to offer this blessing. It's from one of my favorite poets, John O'Donoghue, and it's called For a Leader. I invite you all to think of yourselves like how you connect onto this, because John O'Donoghue has a very unique and I find inspiring way of thinking of a leader. May you have the grace and wisdom to act kindly, learning to distinguish between what is and what is not. May you be hospitable to criticism. May you never put yourself at the center of things. May you act not from arrogance, but out of service. May you work on yourself, building up and refining the ways of your mind. May those who work for you know you see and respect them. May you learn to cultivate the art of presence in order to engage with those you meet. When someone fails or disappoints you, may the graciousness with which you engage be their stairway to renewal and refinement. May you treasure the gifts of the mind through reading and creative thinking, so that you continue as a servant of the frontier, where the new will draw its enrichment from the old, and may you never become a functionary. May you know the wisdom of deep listening, the healing of wholesome words, the encouragement of an appreciative gaze, the decorum of held dignity, the springtime edge of a bleak question. May you have a mind that loves frontiers, so that you can invoke the bright fields that lie beyond the view of the regular eye. May you have good friends to mirror your blind spots, and may leadership be for you a true adventure of growth. Those are the words of the late, great Irish poet, John O'Donoghue. It's a story from the Buddhist tradition about the bandit Agulimal. And the Buddha is out walking in the area that this bandit is active. And the bandit sees him and confronts him with a sword and says, "Why are you doing in my territory? I'm going to kill you." And the Buddha says, "Before you do that, can I ask for one wish?" He said, "Yes." He says, "Cut down the branch of that tree." So Agulimal cuts down the branch of the tree. He said, "What now?" He said. The Buddha says, "Put it back." And Agulimal goes, "You must be crazy. I can't put it back." And the Buddha says, "Crazy? You are the one who's crazy. To think you are mighty because you can wound and destroy, that is easy. The mighty know how to create and heal." And I think so much of a part of our religious community, perhaps now more than ever, is to bring healing to ourselves and to the world around us. That is at the core of who we are as a spiritual community. And I ask you to think, how do you want to bring healing to the world? And before that, what healing do you need to make that happen? How do you need to connect with your joy? How do you need to connect with your hope so that you can bring healing to our world? We have renewed this religious community in the 4 years I've been here. Our Action Sundays that we brought in was a renewal. We built on what we had that we liked in worship. We built on what we had with this idea of trying to bring some of the joys and excitement from our church retreat to Sunday mornings. We kept what we felt was best, and then we moved forward with the Action Sundays. What's the next step? What else? What other part of our community do we need to renew as we move forward? Our larger faith, our Unitarian Universalist faith, last week at General Assembly, as I sent out the email, they renewed our values. They built on what was past, and they gave us a reframing of renewing what was called the Article 2 of our bylaws. And they really defined the 7 values that they believe at the core of Unitarian Universalism, putting love at the center. And we heard both from Lee and Tracey how much they are trying to put love at the center. For some, it's a daily practice. This is an exciting time for this community. This is an exciting time for Unitarian Universalism, because we are renewing ourselves, building on what's best for the past, but bringing our religion in that I think will be more meaningful for the 21st century, making something better, more applicable to the present day, more applicable to the challenges we face now, and for me, most importantly, more relational, beyond our history of this radical individualism. We're finally moving away from this radical individualism to replace this love, to place this relationship between one another as the sacredness that connects us all. That is a renewing of our faith. I find it inspirational. I hope you do too. Look at the back of the order of service. The 7 values are there. And we're going to be going through that in the next year to renew each of our faith, renew our connections with one another, renew our connections with this community, renew our connection with the sacred of our understanding. Renewal is exciting. It's not easy. It's challenging. It's a bit uncomfortable. But I think it will be profoundly meaningful. Unitarian Universalism has this historical idea of walking together. And I invite us to take that idea and let's walk towards one another. And it's less about being open-minded as about being open-hearted. How can we open our hearts to hope, to love, to compassion, to justice? That's the work we will be doing in the coming year, expanding our capacity for each of those. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "You must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope." We must accept finite disappointment, but never lose infinite hope. Can we wake up each morning finding the good, the kind, the hopeful? If we can, that is the first step in renewing our love for the world, and that is an infinite act of hope, and I believe a path to healing our world.